And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to IT Career in Australia live stream. And tonight's topic is how to transition from the corporate IT to business owner. Again, thank you so much for finding some time this evening to join our live discussion. Please, as usual, introduce yourself in the comments. Let us know what you do and join our conversation with your comments and questions. If you're new to my live show, I'm Jana Martins. I'm currently working in IT consultancy, and I'm passionate about learning more about present and future of tech industry, and also share my new findings with you here on this YouTube channel. So tonight we're going to talk about how to transition from the corporate IT to business owner, and Lloyd is going to share his experience as he recently made this transition himself. So he will talk about his motivations, challenges he faced on the way, and how he overcome it, and what helped him to overcome it as well. So again, make sure to say hi in the comments. We don't like talking with the crickets, so I will really appreciate if you just do the quick hi and let us know that you're here. And obviously, it's an incredibly relevant topic for anyone who, maybe been working in a corporate career for quite a long time and thinking, what's next? What can I do next after this, successful corporate IT career? So before I'll pass it on to Lloyd to introduce himself, I just wanted to remind you quickly that we're going live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you want to watch replays, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, IT Career in Australia. I'm going live there every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time, with various experts from my network. And we're talking about all the things about IT career, job search, and specifics of IT industry in Australia. As usual, you can also join my meetup group to make sure you get notifications about upcoming events. Yes, please ask the questions. We will try to answer majority of your questions from all the platforms. Please try to stay on the topic as usual. And also, I always advise you, please use these live streams not only as your opportunity to learn something new, but also to network with like-minded people in the industry. So that's basically enough of me. Mohammed is here. Greeting of the day. He's accounted from Pakistan. Thank you, Mohammed, for joining us today. So, guys, again, say hi. You see, Mohammed did a good job. He said hi, and you guys just watching and being silent. So make sure to say hi, and I'm gonna pass it to Lloyd to introduce himself, please.
Oh, hello. So I'm Lloyd. I'm the founder of Virtual Do. That's Virtual DOO. And my business helps busy business owners escape the daily operations so they can focus on strategy and relationships and their passions and shaking the tree for new business. And we do this by providing director of operations as a service. And I was not so long ago, a year and a half ago, maybe just a bit more, I was in corporate land, and I was, for my career prior to that, I was either a contractor or a permanent employee in contract land, mainly focused in IT.
Thank you. So, freshly to the new, world of the business ownership, Lloyd. So obviously would love to hear your story. I have so many questions that I'm already thinking to ask you, but I guess let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So obviously you mentioned that you worked in IT before. So just briefly tell us about what did you do before you actually, decide to move to business?
Sure. I mean, I've been in corporate world ever since I was 17. So I feel like until recently, I've been in corporations forever. For the most part, I've been in large institutions. I worked at Dell, IBM, Accenture, and then a load of corporates, different investment banks. And for 10 years or so, I was a computer programmer. And then the remaining half of my corporate career, I was leading people in large teams across the globe. That was my background.
So here you go, guys. If you sitting there, coding for last 10 years, it doesn't mean that you can, completely shift your career to opening some new business. So, Lloyd, I guess what was motivation for you? Yes. So, I guess we all get like corporate jobs. Sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's not as exciting, sometimes pay us good money, give us some stability, but sometimes you want to move. Like, what motivates you to do something different?
I heard a joke the other day, and it was along the lines of, what drove the biggest digital transformation in your company? And, was it the CEO, was it the CIO, or was it COVID? And COVID is the real answer. Like, COVID just forced people to absolutely change everything. And so for me, COVID was one of those things. I really liked working from home and being able to work anywhere, and businesses were forced to make that possible. I mean, my team were already working remotely on their laptops and were already able to work from home, but it just made it a new norm. And then because there was no longer a commute to work, I got into this habit of going surfing every day before work started, and then sometimes a cheeky little surf on my lunch break. And so I just got used to this style, no commute, surfing, working remotely. And I thought, when this COVID was over and we were going to have to go back to an office, I thought, don't want that to finish. Like, I really like this flexibility. And the thoughts of returning back to a brightly lit office, and as I said there, daily commute, and that was really quite off-putting. I really did not want to do that. And there's also another thing there, which is more about the business side than my drivers to work from home, which was, having ran quite large teams for a while, sometimes there are things that are outside of your control, where it's a decision from the upper management, and it can be incredibly frustrating that you just have to accept it. That's just it. A decision is made above you. And whereas if you have your own business and something goes wrong, it's your fault. And there's a lot of, that's a good thing, right? When it's your fault, when you make a mistake, or when you have to do something that you don't want to do, at least you make that decision. And I find that incredibly freeing, actually, rather than having a frustration of things that I don't like necessarily that are going on up above. So there was a driver there for me to start my own business. And the rest, as I'll tell you shortly, was a bit of a coincidence of how it all happened.
I guess, you brought a few good points that I think a lot of people experience in last 2 years. Majority of people obviously experienced the COVID restrictions, and it's been a burning topic at the moment in terms of flexible work arrangements, working from home. And we did talk, before a lot with even with like Eden not long ago about the flexibility in the tech industry, and the companies who attracting new talent at the moment with this opportunity for them to work remotely and go for a surf at the lunch break. And I think you're definitely not the first person I'm talking with who made some big decisions and make some changes during COVID, because even the COVID was probably not the best experience for everyone. It's definitely accelerated something in some people and make us do some things that we probably was hesitating to do before, or like always thinking like one day I'll do that. Was it a bit like this for you, that you've been thinking about it for a while and then like COVID hit and you're like, maybe it's the time?
I'd always had some kind of entrepreneurial spirit. Like, I remember when I was in school, I tried to start a business with a friend, and I'm too embarrassed to tell you the name of that business, but it never went anywhere. And then a few years back, I started a surfing website selling knickknacks, like small items, like low value items. And it's just like a little side hobby, and it didn't really go anywhere. While I sold items, it didn't really pay me enough money for my time, but it was something I always wanted to do. And then this opportunity, I would say, through COVID, given that we were locked down and I was able to go surfing, actually because I was surfing every day, I'd started to give surf reports, and quite a growing community of people, quite a large audience, were listening to my daily surf reports. And incidentally, I still do this. And one of the people who was listening to my surf reports is quite a well-known business coach, name of James Schramko. And we had a conversation in the sea one day, and it went along the lines of, I'd quite like to explore starting a business, and how would I do that, and how do I enlist your services? And he said, well, what are you good at? And I said, well, managing people, managing projects and operations, and doing process improvement. And he's like, well, you can definitely make a business out of that. And he sent me along the lines of some books that would put me in the right direction. We had a few side conversations. And then at some point during COVID, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And having a mentor to help you is huge. It will save you so much time. Like, there's no way I could have actually had this quickly anyway without my mentor. Just, there are definitely areas of strength, like I've just said, the actual delivery side, like that's been my career. But when you have a business, then so much of it is sales and marketing. Like, I have to be able to get new customers, and it doesn't matter how good you are at delivery. If you're unable to acquire new customers, then you're not going to have any work. And so this is some of the areas that my coach has been able to coach me through. But it's so broad because he's been someone who's owned businesses before and now coaches people. That's just, sales and marketing is just one area. This, you can have a coach that can help you with solution finding and, all being a soundboard of ideas and things like that. So, that's how it all begun.
I guess guys actually who's listening to us tonight, or if you're watching replay, please let us know, did you have those thoughts during COVID? Then the COVID hit and you felt like, that's my time to change something and start something new. Like, I've definitely started something completely new during COVID as well. And, even this YouTube channel came from COVID, right. I guess. So I think a lot of us experience, some sort of change. But I guess, and it's a great example, Lloyd, in terms of, you start doing something new and start being open for some new opportunities. And, you start doing something you enjoy, go surfing, and, you find this business coach, and that's lead to the next step. I think, majority of things happen for the reason. When we actually start noticing the things around us and, doing the things that we actually enjoy. But I guess coming back to business coach, I understand it's probably was like a big impact for you actually getting a business coach. So, what are why do you think it's so important actually to think about getting the coach when you're thinking about, moving to the business ownership?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you're going to have gaps, unless you've had, so say for example, me, right? Like I've been in corporate world, I was in corporate world since I was 17, and I would know about running a large team. But would I know about, how should I structure the setup of my company? How should I set up bank accounts for international transactions? How do I do those sales calls? What's the minimum I should get going up on a website in order to just acquire some customers? It's all manner of things. You could spend that time and figure it out yourself, or you can just have someone who's done it already tell you how to do it. So this is thanks for bringing that slide up. That's James, my coach, and he was a great person to align with, because there are many different coaches out there and they have to align with your goals. So my goals, don't get me wrong, I like money, but my goals are actually less focused on money and more focused on the ability to travel, the ability to work from home, and work flexibly and choose when I want to work. those are my goals. Whereas some people will be more financially focused. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind some more money, right? But I don't want that to be at the compromise of my time. So James just happens to be someone whose whole ethos is set on work-life balance, or working less and still making more, kind of in the same vein as someone like Tim Ferriss. And so I think it's important to have a coach that aligns to you and your goals. And so, as I was saying earlier, it's not just about filling the gaps. So he can fill the gaps with sales and marketing, accounting, various questions he might guide me about. He's not a lawyer, but he can say, oh, these are the things you want to speak to a lawyer about, or these are the things you should speak to an accountant about. But also soundboarding ideas. I can say, oh, was this a good deal if I do this deal with someone, or is that a bad deal? Or, what kind of commission should I take on this deal, or all manner of things. It's also, it can be a bit of a lonely sport if you're one person, you're the founder. When you've got a problem, who do you talk to? It's a bit of a lonely game. And so having a coach is a good thing, because you're not just got a coach you can talk to, but there'll be a community of people that they coach. So for example, in his circle, there is a weekly coaching call, which is a group call. And you can all share your wins, but also your challenges. And you can have this confidential space with other business owners to share their challenges. And you're obviously getting your question answered, but you're learning from other people. So, I might have never have succeeded without a coach. And it's still early days, but the speed to get business was incredible.
And I like that you mentioned about alignment with the coach, because I think that's one of the, tricky things sometimes, because there is so much advice out there as well. And I think, the really good example of asking yourself a question, why I'm starting the business. Like, am I really starting it just, from the money perspective, for, flexibility, or I have a purpose to, help people with something? Like, asking this question before even looking for the coach, that's probably, the quite important thing, because then it really depends what sort of coach you will need. Because there's so many areas of the business that need to be covered.
And I can give you a good example of where this came into play not so long ago. I'm really lucky to have some great customers who I have a superb relationship with. And one of my customers just loves what my business does. Like, he's like, oh, this is not his business. He's got a very nice, successful business. But he's like, oh, Lloyd, you could make your business expand in this area and that. He's a successful businessman. So he can, of course, see where my business could expand. And he was considering brokering a deal with me, which would bring me in a huge number of customers. And that sounded great on the surface, but my coach said, don't do it. You're not ready. Like, if you take on, however many at once, you're just going to explode, and your goals of wanting this balance will fail. Like, you will just blow out, and you probably won't deliver if you take on this many people at the same time. So his answer was, don't take it. And so that's another great, I was thinking, oh, should I try? It seems like too much of a good opportunity to let go of. But, the right answer was, don't do it. Your goal is a lifestyle focused business. And so, that was the advice.
Yeah, exactly. Coming back to this original goal, the purpose of moving. But I guess, how did you actually obviously the motivation was there, you met the coach, but I think a lot of people always hesitating about moving to, from the stable, well-paid job to some, to exploring the business opportunities, because it could be just, a bit scary, what I will lose the income, how I'm going to pay my mortgage, what if no one going to buy my service, How did you shift this mindset, I guess, thing that, to decide that, okay, no, I'm quitting. I'm gonna go and try to do something by myself.
And I'm really glad that you raised that, because it is a real risk. I knew I had a fair chunk of savings going in. Like, I knew I could take a very long period of time out of work before there was a big problem. So I was already had saved. And when I thought, you know what, you only live once, when am I going to do this or not do this? I just thought, let's just go for it. But I was in a position where I could be without income for a substantial amount of time. So if you were putting yourself under the pressure of burning the bridges behind you and then having to absolutely perform, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, because there's so much to learn. It just takes time to get things brewing. So for me, I had been having slow conversations for a while while I still had a job. And when I felt I was ready, then I did it. But even then, when I was ready, I had savings to do it. So I'm not trying to paint a picture of, oh, it's going to be absolutely fine. You know, there is a good reason why I have a coach, and that's to help me with things like, well, how do I market my services, and where do I acquire my customers from, and things like that.
And, you mentioned, like, you're waiting when you're ready. So do you think is any point that you actually felt that you're ready?
Did I think I was ready? Yeah, I felt I was ready. I was just ready for a change. I think there was just two strong forces there. There was the thought and threat of having to go back to a brightly lit office and give up my current lifestyle. And then there was the thought of, well, if not, then when? Like, let's just give this a go. So why not? And the worst case scenario was, okay, it didn't work. I might have made a fool out of myself in putting myself out there, and I might have to go back and get a job, but that's okay. So I just took the risk and went for it. And so far, so good. And definitely, there's been some lessons on the way, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely heading in the right direction.
And I think that's another good point in terms of there is, it's not like you're completely burning the bridges. So I think majority of people, and, people who are listening to this episode today, I think you all need to remember that, if you worked in the corporate for like 10 years before, it's not like you burn the bridges and you don't have a, way back. So there's all this, you can always find your way back. Is the worst come to worse. So
yeah, completely. And that was my last resort, which is, okay, this doesn't work out. I think the next thing I would do, if this had fallen through, is go back and maybe do contracting, because I like being that independent entity. And so I think that has been my backup plan, but I haven't had to pull the cord and do that any time. So it's not looking like that.
Yeah, but I guess you raised a good point as well. For some people, it could be this uncomfort of what if I fail and I have to go back. And, like all these people who've been in the corporate this time, maybe they, for during these few years, maybe they progress in their career, and, you need to come back in the 3 years and you're behind or something like this, so maybe these sort of thoughts can come up to mind as well.
I don't think it's going backwards, because if I was to go into corporate world now, I can say, well, I've nearly run this business has gone for, it'll be coming up 2 years, not so long, or year and a half plus. And I've taken on people for myself with my own money, and, done international deals with countries all over the world. So I would be able to reuse those skills somewhere else in corporate world. So I don't think you're losing. I think there is a certain amount of, you have to accept you're putting yourself out there. Because I think when I was in corporate world, I wouldn't be putting myself out on LinkedIn Live, like with you, or putting out my 1-minute management tips on my Instagram and LinkedIn Live, which are pretty radical if anyone's ever seen any of them. They've got special effects and all sorts of things. And those things might be, you've got to put yourself out there if you're going to do something like that. So if you're too concerned about saving face, then maybe it's not for you, because you have to be prepared to try things, and some things aren't going to work out, and you're going to have to go, okay, well, that's fine. Like, I really believe in that fail fast mentality. You're not going to get everything right first time. when I started doing this, I think my pricing was off, and I've tried different things, and just try something, have a little experiment, see if it works. If it doesn't work out, do something else.
And I think, that's one of the big shifts to make then you're making this move. Like I did the opposite kind of thing, like I moved from being self-employed to employed. And I guess that's another thing, because, like you don't have any experience working for someone, and then you need to, kind of market yourself differently. But I've done this and I've done that, and I've done it, but just from a different point of view. But there's always the way. And I think, so the good thing that for a lot of people to overcome, that don't focus on the things you haven't done and keep focusing on the things you've done. And you can always remarket it basically for any job if you need to. So you never start from the beginning, you always start from the experience.
Yeah, I agree.
And I guess you have a few steps here for those who, thinking about moving. So
it's not an exhaustive
it's a
list.
lot of steps here.
I tried to just rattle down some things like, well, this is a how-to. So I thought, okay, well, let me just try and share a few things that just came to mind, like just go through a few of them. So I think, the first thing is, it's not employee mindset anymore. It's like you're not working whatever your working hours are, 8 hours a day. You work when you need to, and that might be less hours, it might be more hours, and it might be I was working with American businesses, which meant that in the beginning my first client was in Vancouver, so actually Canada, and that meant that, okay, well, Monday in Australia is their weekend still, so I'm not going to hear much from them. But guess what, Tuesday to Saturday it's on. So what's the concept of a weekend mean? So things there change, but it also means there's no such concept of holiday, but you can take holiday anytime as long as you've planned and managed around it, right? So it's just getting out of this employee mindset was one, and that's something actually my coach had to help me with a lot. I talked about skills inventory. That was just what my skills were in terms of me having skills managing people, projects and operations and process improvement, and then seeing what the market is for that. And so that's where I came up with this director of operations as a service business, and could see that there was opportunity out there. So obviously if you're going to start a business, you want to just see that there is actually demand for it. And again, my coach helped me with that, saying, your skills are required. Then I've put in there right offer a bit further down. So you have to try and snag a customer, and that involves having a website with a listing of your service. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty to polish on my site, but if you go there, it's going to tell you a bit more about what we do with some testimonials. So it's putting an offer there that converts to a sale, so that someone's already warm to you. How do they contact me? There's a contact form. So this was like the bare minimum, like almost just a bit more than a one-page website. And if you still go there, it's pretty basic, because most of my work comes through referral. Then marketing and sales training, that's been huge for me, as I keep on repeating. The whole process of setting up an agreement with a client, like, what's an agreement look like? What kind of legal contract do you have with them? And I still evolve certain elements in those agreements, not just pricing, but in terms of what are the rules of my team engaging them? Can they talk to the team? Can they poach them? Can they buy them off me? Things like that. What does my agreements look like with my team? So that kind of thing. So there's always so much refinement. I think I've probably talked enough about to that slide, and I've got a part 2 if you're happy to bring that up. Yeah.
I actually have a bit of a question regarding the skills in inventory, because I guess a lot of us, especially if you worked in let's say similar job for 10 years, So we're so used to those skill set we have, we're so used to what we're doing that we think it just, almost like a common sense. Yeah. So, so it seems like, everyone can do it because it's just like obvious. So I'm just wondering, like how you, and probably, maybe you're working with the coach about it, but how you discover that that's a skill set you can offer other people, because, so sometimes we not noticing what we're good at, and we we have the skills, but what we actually can sell, and try to come up with these great ideas instead of just looking what's around us right there.
I think if you're in a IT corporate job and you're relatively well paid, which I can imagine most of the people listening to this are, then you have a skill which is marketable because someone's paying a lot of money for it. So the question there is, how do you then offer that as a service? So I do know of other businesses out there, and actually, as someone who offers a director of operations as a service, I have a listing of people who offer services who that director of operations will use, because we're planted in so many businesses. Oh, they need someone to run a marketing team, someone to run a sales team, someone to do technical operations. I've got the lists of people I can call. I'm not going to do that. I'll call the service providers. But these people have all been through the same thing that I have been through and realized this is their special power, this is their skill, and can they turn it into a business? So I think the answer is, if you're someone on this call and you've got an IT corporate career, you almost certainly have something that can be turned into a business. I think the biggest challenge is, how do you package it in such a way that you get exposure to sell it? Like, you need to be able to have some kind of sales channels or way to put the word out so that people know you exist. And that might be referral in the beginning.
100%. I think it's a common mistake in the beginning. Maybe then people don't have enough experience in the business. They overthink that they need to come up with something really different, something, unique, something interesting, something unique product. And, sometimes we get really, think about, it's a new startup because they come up with this new idea and but at the end of the day, most of the time it's someone just look at the demand, look at the skills, and maybe just did a little point of difference. And the point of difference could be just the particular target audience or a particular offer, but it doesn't need to be something completely outrageous or unique.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are businesses like mine that offer director of operations. Mine's a little bit unique because mine's as a service, and it's fractional, which means that I can offer someone who's a director of operations and they'll serve two businesses. And that might go, oh, okay, well, I'm only getting half a person or a percentage of a person. But that is also a benefit because this person's been solving problems on another business that they're likely to see elsewhere. So I had seen various elements out there of fractional businesses, like I'd heard of fractional CFOs, and that's become, or fractional marketers, things like that, fractional CMOs. So why not a fractional director of operations? Why not? So I haven't created anything radically new. I've just borrowed other ideas and put this together. But I could see there is busy business owners everywhere who want to get out of daily operations. So, but I continue to refine this. And a thing I would say is, you're not going to get it perfect first time. Like, put something out there. Don't make it too complex, because if you make something too complex, people, they won't get it. It's like, what is this thing? And you're going to have to probably change it anyway, like when you get feedback and test what works and what doesn't work. And I'm constantly changing. So if you wait to perfection, it's just a waste of time. And actually, working with the various businesses that I work with, they've given me feedback about my offer, and I've changed them for the benefit of others. So get started.
Definitely. Yeah, getting started. And Lloyd, obviously, because we're talking about corporate IT here as well. So what do you think, obviously you're coming from a software development background as well. Mm-hmm. So before, start leading team and stuff. So what do you think that experience as being, software developer in the beginning, what that experience gave you and how it helps you now when you're running your business.
It's helped me a lot because nearly all of my customers are online businesses in some way, whether it's e-commerce or a service that they sell, whether it's a soft service where they're selling people's time or coaching or something like that. There's a technical element to it in that they have a website. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to be rolling up my sleeves and fixing the problems, but it does mean that if someone's going to need to fix a problem, I'm going to know what kind of person with what kind of skills is going to need to be involved. But there's a common pattern there, which is that the one thing that I've enjoyed at the beginning of my career until now is I like solving problems. And it used to be focused on technical problems. What's going on in this server? Like, what's going on in the logs? Why is this thing kaput? To more solving people challenges. And there was an overlapping space in the middle where I was a technical leader, where something has gone wrong with some program or system, and it would involve getting everyone into a room, but that could be a virtual room these days, and facilitating a discussion to solve the problem. Well, guess what? You can do that whether it's a technical problem or a management problem or a problem brewing in a warehouse, whatever. It's such a broad skill to have if you're a good technical problem solver that I think the key element you've got to have is, can you technically problem solve, but can you include other people in it? Because that's been the two skills that I've been able to use the most, is understanding a problem, but then bringing other people in and being able to help them solve it. So nowadays, actually, a lot of the way I solve problems is not so much doing the technical piece or the problem solving myself, but just figuring out who to bring into a discussion who can solve it. But all of that's come from being technical. So it's completely relevant.
Yeah. And, the reason I ask this question as well, because I'm talking with a lot of people who transition career, move to another area, or maybe transition to IT from the different, industry. I just want to, everyone who listening to this live streams to also understand that there is so many skills that transitional across all the industries. And I think some people sometimes get a bit scared that oh my God, how I can go to a completely different industry? I don't know anything about it and things like this. But again, I just want to kind of reinforce it that so many skills in this life, I guess, so transitional, and, all these problem solving skills, communication skills, those skills you learn on any job, and you can basically, take them with you to wherever next step you're taking, or whatever, to your new challenge or your new journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when I was running this e-commerce business myself, I hadn't come from a background of how's the production and all of the shipping of the warehouse going to work. But I know that I can work with the people in the warehouse and find out, okay, what things do we need to measure, that are going to be red, green, and amber? Let's put them on a report somewhere so that we know visibly, is this good? Is it bad? And that's kind of similar to what I would do with a server on a website. Okay, is the response times working out all right? What things should I be measuring and logging? It's the same concept. So I really believe that those skills that you will have if you're moving from one industry to another are completely transferable.
Yeah, definitely. And let's come back to, your steps. We talk about, a few steps in the beginning, just, repeat it for people who are listening, just kind of make sure, get your basics right in terms of, your websites, invoicings, offer, and, legal side. Again, what's the, steps, other steps?
More just carrying on from there. I think I talked about, I had to set up an international bank account, or being able to transact in multiple different countries. And then there was the steps of hiring people. So that was interesting because in corporate world, I had quite big teams before, but I was hiring on behalf of a company. But now the thing is, I'm now hiring for me. I'm hiring people and I'm signing contracts with them. And so I have to go out and get advice on, all right, what should I have in a contract between my entity and them? And then in different countries, I've got a couple of staff members in the Philippines, how should that vary? What's what happens culturally in terms of their holiday and sick leave and so forth, so it's consistent with them in their country. So I think the most thing is just being prepared to learn. Like it's been exciting. Like I've just learned so much. What else have I got on this list? Yeah, you've got to know about taxes and what else on here? Just lots of things on here. I think having a scheduler is huge. That's an odd thing. I don't know if anyone here's heard of Calendly, but there's all sorts of various ones out there like Acuity Scheduler. But when you're dealing with people from lots of different time zones, to try and say, oh, let's meet at this time or that time gets incredibly confusing, and then having a back and forth. So having something which is a scheduler where you're able to just in your calendar advertise your availability without actually showing them the contents of their calendar. And when they view that, they can just pick a slot in their time zone. So using things like that, I didn't have to do that so much in corporate world. And I'm sure those things are becoming more relevant now, but learning how to use things like that have just become critical.
And the Calendly is great. You can put it just on your email signature.
Yeah.
And then basically anyone can just, instead of even like, it just saves this emailing back and forward like so much. Like if you have your calendar just on your email signature, every time, someone needs to schedule a meeting with you, they just drop it straight to your Calendly.
Yeah. And I mean, you'd lose so much time if it was with a completely different time zone. If I'm trying to go to the US and then another email might be a day is lost in between. So just learning how to use that. Loom is another tool I've been using a lot. So if I'm dealing with people in different time zones, then I don't always want to be able to meet with them in person because I'm going to have to wait, but just being able to leave a recorded message for them. And you could just as much do this in WhatsApp or whatever. And to be honest, I do that for people who are in my more inner circle, shall we say. But if it's with another business, being able to record a quick video and have a chat is just a bit more personal. You can also screen share. So just learning some more tooling. My focus in recent times now has been on, as I mentioned earlier, sales and marketing, because that's just not something I was doing in my career. So focusing on that, like how do I acquire more leads in my business? Working on my business instead of in it. So I'm no longer the person on the coalface of the delivery, but I am thinking, okay, how do I change how I do business with people? Like what's a good deal for them and me? What does my offer looks like? What do I want to change in the future? And as we've got in this slide as well, another thing I've done recently is put out a book, which is going to be in Amazon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. There's printed copies available now. And a part of that is really becoming an authority in my area. So while I've not had a business for long, I do know about people, projects and operations and process improvement because I've been doing it for a very long time. And so this is a book about sharing the lessons that I've learned. And it's effectively a lead source as well, because people will go, oh, okay, he's an author. He knows about such a topic. Who is this guy? And so this is a part of effectively sales and marketing by putting out a book.
We'll make sure we'll share the Amazon link in the comments as soon as your book is online, so that people can click through and check it out. And guys, I can see quite a few of you still on the line, but you've just been, pretty quiet today. If you have any questions, make sure to pop it in the comments. Also curious to hear if you, tried to start your business recently, or or maybe what's stopping you from moving. You're thinking about it, but there is, this little thought in your head that thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't, maybe it's too risky, maybe it's not the right time, maybe I'm not ready. So curious to hear your thoughts. Lloyd, question for you also. Is there anything you're actually missing about corporate world at the moment?
A decent coffee machine. The thing I've got here in my where I'm living is mediocre. I had a very good one. There is that personal connection, like where you actually go and see someone. Like there's so much easy access to you to go and spend time with someone in an office. It just means for me that I spend time walking down the local coffee shop and catching up with people. For me, look, I'm really happy doing my own thing. I think it's just having that personal connection. But so I do make time to actually go and catch up with people while I'm all about being remote and in employing remote teams and doing business with remote companies, where I get the opportunity, I do go and see people too. And actually, a great test for my business was recently, because obviously now flying restrictions have relaxed, I've been able to travel again. And so in the last 2 months, I've been to London, the Maldives, Hawaii, Singapore, and San Diego, and still keeping my business working and catching up
and
with
putting
people.
it all on the business expenses.
Well, I was catching up with people as well. I am genuinely making connections. I may have gone surfing a few times in most of those places, apart from England. But, that was a lot of that is about catching up with people. And a lot of that genuinely is about connecting with people for business, not just seeing various folks outside of business.
I think I remember having a similar discussion probably a few years ago, some live stream about someone moving to, set up their business as well. And I asked them the same question, what did they miss? And they said Qantas Gold membership.
Well, yeah, you can still get all of that. I am very quickly accruing points on a company Amex, but it takes a little while, and you can definitely do those things.
Yes, there's a few little things about corporate IT that coffee machine. Here we go. So
get coffee machine.
The things you do. Okay, so I'm just cautious about the time. We're already, 46 minutes into our conversation. So I think it's time just to a little bit wrap up and summarize our conversation. I guess before we summarize, our discussion, maybe tell us just a little bit what your business actually do. So you already mentioned, I guess, that, you do the operations, but maybe just give us a little bit overview as well.
Yeah, so it's Director of Operations as a Service. So we're supplying a Director of Operations actually and a team to support them to assist a busy business owner to get that busy business owner out of the day-to-day operation. So what does this all mean? A business owner started a business because they were enthusiastic about a product or service, and then it got to a certain point where they started hiring people, and then they found that they're now stuck in doing administration, managing people, projects, and operations, and that's not what they want to do. Like normally they're enthusiastic about their products and how they're going to change the business and those things. So they've got options about how they solve this problem. They can hire someone internally, and that's definitely a good option. Or they can hire a service like us. So the reason we exist is because if they're hiring a service like us, we're only month to month. So we might be as a stopgap for 3 months to help them identify their process gaps and fill them. Or we might be a longer period. In fact, typically we are much longer than that. And one of the benefits is that if you're hiring, say, a Director of Operations for a business that's like an online business, then at that level, the Director of Operations is probably going to want a small stake in the business. Whereas if you're employing a service instead, we're month to month, we're paid, contractually. We're not expecting that. So there's good reasons. And of course, we benefit from the fact that we're serving other businesses that have solved the same problems. So I hope that explains what we do. And it's, as I've put here on the slide, it's very much a pick and mix of who our customers are. Like we're not niched into a particular industry. It's really we're good at managing teams and projects and operations and process improvement, finding those gaps and fixing them. So if you look there on the slide, like it's been so broad. Some of the customers we've had and are working with, like e-commerce, SEO, video marketing, relationship therapists. Got a dating coach at the moment. That's a fascinating business. Learning a lot about that. Business coaching, music, e-commerce education. Those are just some of the businesses we've been working with. So really, really broad. And it's exciting to do it. It's just so completely different. You can make impacts really quickly to these businesses. You don't it is very quick to get a decision from a business owner, rather than in corporate. Quite often you have to go through many levels of approval, whereas there you just speak to the founder and say, hey, I recommend we do this, or we already have approval under a certain financial limit to just do whatever needs to be done. So things happen a lot quicker.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, I guess, the exciting part about it. And we should definitely talk about, dating coaching sometime. I just don't know how to connect it to the IT career, how to connect. Maybe there is some link there. I need to think about it, how I can bring this topic to this channel.
There's a business opportunity for you.
Yeah, definitely. And guys, so obviously, talking about the future topics. So next week, 12th of October, we're gonna talk about the how to structure your tech team and startup versus corporate. So yeah, a bit of a similar vibe again in terms of like the difference of corporate, I guess, and the startup. So Grant will be talking about the difference, kind of what's the different roles you will have when you when you're building the team in the corporate or the startup scale up. And obviously people will have different titles and different responsibilities and so on. And you can have a same title in the corporate and the scale up and doing completely different jobs. So definitely join if you interested to hear about the team structure. So it will be next week as usual, 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time. And if you want to connect with Lloyd, so you can head to his website. It's on the screen at the moment, and I'll pop it in the comments as well. Is LinkedIn good place to connect with you as well, Lloyd?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yes, LinkedIn website. So and yeah, remember we're going to put the link to the book as well. And Lloyd, just before I let you go, let's summarize first. Okay. So tell me, we talk about this moving from the corporate IT. So if you need to summarize, what will be like a top 3 tips or top 3 like things that people need to think about when they're doing this transition?
Oh, I'm on the spot now. I think you're gonna have to have a financial buffer. That's number one. Because if it doesn't come off, I'm not trying to blow anyone's confidence, but if it doesn't come off, you need to be able to have enough money to ride out the storm and then work out what you're going to do next. I would definitely say, because it's the road I've done, hire a coach. Yep. And the third thing I would say is don't let perfect be the enemy of done. So I would take small experiments that you think are going to be good and try them out and be prepared to fail and be prepared to change course and realize that you were wrong and there's a better way to do things. So fail fast, change direction, try something else. That's my 3.
And the next question I wanted to ask, what is your favorite inspirational quote? But you kind of already put 2 quotes in there. But you have another quote. You can add one more.
Now you put me on for another quote. No.
But the perfect enemy of doing is the perfect example.
Don't let perfect be the enemy of done. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Unless you have any other quotes that you want to share before we finish this live stream. While you're thinking about it, guys, if you're enjoying our discussion, please make sure to like this video, because that's obviously encouraged me to keep going and keep bringing various experts from my network to share their knowledge and stories and inspirational quotes. So yeah, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done it yet. So we have various topics, regarding IT industry, career transitions, and specifics of IT industry in Australia. So, and obviously, if you join the meetup group, you get notification about upcoming events. And Lloyd, do you want to share?
I've got one. I must confess, I looked in one of my favorite quotes files, and I've got one for you. And it's going to be, never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's by Winston Churchill. So it's basically saying if something goes wrong, like learn from it and capitalize on it. In fact, that's so key in IT, in corporate IT as well. Like, you know, if there was some kind of server meltdown or whatever, then now use that as an example to go and get the funding to fix that, or what are you going to learn from it, or what are you going to change? Because if you make a mistake once, that's okay, as long as you learn from it and just don't do it again. So never let a good crisis go to waste.
Perfect. Thank you, Lloyd. Great quote. And I think, you know, the COVID crisis probably give a lot of us a bit of a boost as well. So, you know, like, let's hope that majority of you who are listening didn't let that crisis go to waste and try to learn from it and take the best from it. So, yeah, I hope, Lloyd, that, you know, that's worked out really well for you, and for, you know, you get all the future success from it.
Thank you for having me on your live.
Thank you for being here, and I'll see everyone next Wednesday.